Welcome in there, Broncos country. It is once again time for another episode of Building the Broncos. I'm your host, Carl Dumler, and with me today, of course, is my good friend, Mr. Nick Kendell. Nick, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, doing pretty well. Actually, just got back from having a couple patio beers for the first time in a long while, social distanced, and brought the dog as well. Gosh, the dog will not stop eating stuff off the ground. So that is unfortunate. That was a little bit annoying, but doing pretty well and excited to talk some football.
Sounds good. I shot off my first fireworks today.
Oh man, I don't want to talk about fireworks.
Lit myself on fire.
Are you serious?
Yeah, right there. Well, a rocket came and hit me.
You have a child. You need to be careful.
Well, I realized I was taking them, I was lighting them and throwing them. And next thing I know, I see her over there lighting them and throwing them. I was like,
oh my God. Yep.
Don't tell. I'm hoping my wife doesn't listen to this episode.
If anyone's listening that knows Carl's wife, copy that. Just send it to her right now.
You got blackmail on me now. Maybe I'll give free gear if you blackmail me. But
we used to shoot like Roman candles and like bottle rockets at each other in high school. But then I grew up. So still making things go boom is fun. But having a dog now, they're constantly going off during weekdays at like 11 p.m. Yeah. Don't like fireworks as much as I used to be honest.
Yeah. First year of having a dog, ours hid in her doghouse for like 3 days.
That's sad.
It really was. The other one like chased him. And so anyway, it's 4th of July week.
Let us know what you think about fireworks. Yay or nay, your favorite one. I am kind of just nostalgia for me being from Iowa. They weren't legal for a while. We used to drive down to Missouri and pick up black cats. Don't know if they're great or not. Just like black cats to me is like this forbidden fruit, which I love for some reason. So let us know in the comment section. Fireworks, yay or nay, favorite ones.
I was a big yay. But anyway, while you guys are writing that out there, make sure you're following us on Twitter. You can find me at Carl Dumler MHH and Nick at Nick Kendell MHH and the podcast Twitter account at BTB Football Pod. Make sure you subscribe to our show wherever you listen to podcasts and leave us a rating. Also, don't miss out on our great off-season content at milehighhuddle.com of the Maven Coalition and Sports Illustrated. And, of course, make sure you know that this podcast is powered by Overtime Media. So we got a fun subject today.
I'm with you, Dennis. I work and they keep me up all night when people are blasting them. So, Oh, my dog doesn't like them. See, fireworks, America, yay. I don't need to blast off fireworks constantly. And if it's on the 3rd or 4th, I can get behind it. But like all the time, I don't know. Yeah. So back to the comment at hand.
Well, I was going to say, I don't like them as much now that I have to pay for them myself. Yeah. When a couple bags full cost like $200 nowadays. Not as fun as they used to be. But anyway, we got a fun subject today. We thought since it is 4th of July, America's birthday, let's go all-time Broncos team. And we've had a couple of our listeners that have requested this in the past, and we just haven't had a chance where we didn't have a major subject going on. And we thought, hey, there's nothing big time right now for sure with the Broncos. We got a little less than a month now till training camp. And so we're going to have to hit the ground running when that all takes off and get going crazy. But we thought this would be a fun subject. So make sure in the comments on Twitter, you can agree, disagree with us. We'll see how much we agree. I'm guessing for the most part, there's going to be quite a few that we do agree on because the Broncos do have some all-time players at some different positions. It's also Canada Day tomorrow.
Hey, God bless you, Canada. Yeah. We love you. Canadian Rockies, gorgeous.
I only know the beginning of their national anthem, and I don't want to insult them with trying to, Right. Robert Castlew, it was funny when Dad blew $50 on a load of fireworks. Yeah, now I'm that dad. Stu McPeak, sorry that you have to run out, but we appreciate the super chat here and giving a shout out to everyone. Of course, we got all of our usuals in here. James Campbell, Wannabes, Terry Randall, Robert Castlew, Jay Roper, Willard Axtell. I'm trying to see all who we got. We got Duke in here as well. Yeah, so good crowd. Excited for talking about this. So let's start with the obvious one, quarterback, right? That's the one everybody – I mean, and I went back and forth on this because the Broncos have had two of the best quarterbacks of all time. And if you look at Peyton Manning's career, I would say he was a better quarterback than John Elway.
You're my guy.
Oh, I'm going to duck on that one.
You're my guy. No, Luke and I went back and forth on this actually on Saturday, Tuesday, whatever. We got the days mixed up, but he was definitely saying John Elway had the better career. I'm taking Peyton Manning in a vacuum, but this is the all-time Broncos team.
Right.
So if we had Peyton Manning for his entire career, I mean, there's a debate to be had, but I'm taking Peyton. Like, honestly, I think this, just the way the league's changed, Peyton was the offense. John Elway, he was great. Obviously went to multiple Super Bowls, and then won them once the team was really good around him. But for the all-time Broncos team, it's got to be John Elway. I mean, it's got to be. I mean, his 60th birthday was this week. I'm not going to do the guy wrong. It's John Elway.
Yeah. Yeah, there's nobody that's meant more to the Denver Broncos. There's nobody who defines the Denver Broncos more than John Elway. I mean, if you're making a Mount Rushmore, first name on the list has to be John Elway. Maybe Pat Bowlen is the only other guy that you can maybe have an argument of who is bigger than the other. But still, John Elway, I mean, he's been a part of every Super Bowl, obviously, with this franchise in one way or another. He's just been the face of everything. Don't forget about Bubby Brister. But it is. Broncos have had two all-time greats, but John Elway did it for a lot longer with the Broncos. He was the one that carried them through some pretty bad rosters, honestly, and still got them to the playoffs, just like Peyton Manning did sometimes with the Colts too. But he definitely deserves to be there. Terry Randall coming in here with the hashtag Nick's Beer Fund. Got to get that in there.
I won't say what number this is today, but like I said, I had some patio beers today, and we're keeping going, man.
Yeah.
It's the all-time list, and gonna keep it chugging along. Oh, you got the red Solo Cup going too. Don't hide that.
I do. It's only got the agua in it, though.
I mean, that's why I got my basic hydro flask here, but yeah, no, John Elway. I think that's the easy pick. I guess besides John Elway and Peyton Manning, who would be the third guy? That's the interesting conversation, because those two guys are obviously the pillars. Who's number three?
Well, Craig Morton was the one that got the Broncos to the only other Super Bowl that doesn't involve Elway or Manning.
Yeah.
So he definitely deserves a shout out. Talent-wise, Jay Cutler would probably be actually number three. But he wasn't with the Broncos all that long, and it was a pretty up and down career.
How funny is it that he might be the Bears' best quarterback of all time?
That's should make us Broncos fans feel a little bit better about the situation of even those years between Elway and Manning.
Yeah.
The fact that we've had Elway and Manning should make you feel a little bit better. Yeah. Broncos have had it pretty well compared to most franchises. Yeah, Jake Plummer's got to be up there, got us to an AFC championship game. That Steelers.
I cried after that 2005 game. I won't lie to you. My dad and I were very upset. Jake Plummer, I actually went to Colorado probably 4 or 5 years ago, and I still have the orange Jake Plummer jersey. It's like falling apart, kind of that, not the nice jersey, but like the steamed on and once you wash it enough times, it starts to fall apart. I still rock that bad boy, and wearing that around Denver, it was like, holy Jake Plummer, yeah, like you're the dude. Yeah. So I mean, he's probably the third most beloved quarterback in Denver history. Yeah,
everybody still loves that guy. I saw a video of him. He owns a vineyard, owns his own vineyard, sells his own.
I'm surprised
wine.
It's not a it's not that kind of shop.
Well, yeah, but he was doing an interview, drinking a glass of wine. So he's a cool dude. He did the ski down a mountain, present the Broncos draft pick. And I still feel like they did him dirty when they drafted Jay Cutler. And I was really hoping they were trading up for a Haloti Ngata. That's who I wanted. And can you imagine that defense? I mean, they were great without him. You add that kind of talent to the middle of that defense, man. But so goes
not in today's game.
Yeah.
No tackles.
Not today's, yeah.
Now, he'd have been fine still. He's kind of like a Vita Vea. But quarterback, I think we both have Elway here. We should probably move on because, again, we're trying to get out of here 45 minutes today, guys. We'll see. But running back now, we only have one running back listed. I went Terrell Davis. There's an argument to be had for Floyd Little. I mean, his nickname is literally the franchise. But, guys, I was not old enough to see Floyd Little. And guess what? There's not accessible college or accessible tape, coaches tape, or just tape in general for when Floyd Little was playing for the Broncos. So I didn't really get to watch him. Have got to watch some Terrell Davis. he was incredible. As far as me actually watching and being able to appreciate even more so, because again, Terrell Davis, I was pretty darn young when he was playing. Clinton Portis's peak years were phenomenal, and the fact that he brought Champ Bailey along is like, gosh, what a trade. But Terrell Davis is a pick for me.
Yeah, that's my choice too. You're right. I didn't get to see Floyd Little, but Terrell Davis, his greatest season, he was MVP. What he did in the playoffs, being the best playoff running back of NFL history in yards per game. I mean, the guy just turned up his game when it mattered most. And I just that one season where he had over 2,000 yards, he could have easily broke the NFL record if he played in fourth quarters. Yeah. The offense was so dominant. He was so dominant. They took him out most games by the end of the third quarter because they were winning so bad. And so it just I'm glad Floyd Little was there because I know he helped save the franchise, keep them in Denver because of what he did. But it really has to be Terrell Davis.
So Sammy Winder is a name that is interesting here. It's Sammy Winder, not Sammy Wiener. So good to hear that. Sammy Winder, and interesting one that honestly before my time I could not tell you. Here's a good question for you guys out there. What was Sammy Winder's dance called? The Mississippi Shuffle or something like that? So if you guys know it, let us know in the comment section. Carl, we didn't have this in the section, but do you have an all-time fullback?
I don't. I mean,
Howard Griffith.
Yeah, that's about the only choice. That's the only name I know.
Some people would probably still say Andy Janovich, just because. The Broncos had a guy that he didn't even make the team, but his name was like Joe Duncan Dunbar or something. Do you remember that?
Yeah, he was like an all-time name.
Yes, yeah. So that's the only reason that he made it for me. Oh, it's the Mississippi Mud Dance. There we go. So thank you, Jim. Oh, Mud Walk. We got a discrepancy coming in here. So Thomas Hall. So we'll see there. Griffith, coming in. Yep, that's a good one.
Yeah,
so
Howard Griffith,
Yep. Wide receivers now, keeping it chugging along. I feel like we did 3 wide receivers because it's the modern NFL. 11 personnel. That's the way to go. I know this is an all-time team, but we're going 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end. The number 1 wide receiver that comes to mind for me is probably Rod Smith. Undrafted free agent. He had that incredible Super Bowl in Super Bowl 33. Great player for a long time. Hard worker, still a guy who's very much a part of Broncos country, and absolutely incredible player. So I'm going with Rod Smith for my number 1.
Yeah, well, yeah, he's number 1 in the franchise's history for wide receiver or for yards receiving. Has an argument to be one of the best undrafted players of all time, or at least to be on the all-time undrafted team. Just great player, and so I'll throw out another name here. Lionel Taylor. I didn't get to see this guy play, but everything I have read on him he was just phenomenal. I mean, there's no other real offensive talent really going on at that point, and he'd be triple covered coming down with the football.
Yeah.
And so I tried to get in a few of the old school guys because even though I didn't get to see them play, just getting to hear some of the history of what they brought to the Broncos, he's one of them that I think definitely deserves to be on the team.
So I have Lionel Taylor written down with question marks afterwards because that was via some crowdsourcing. I know he was great. I haven't watched him. So that's just word of mouth from people that I trust. So I'm not the authority on that. I'll be the first to tell you, but he has enough, I guess, hype behind him that he's deserving of a mention here for our 3 wide receivers.
Well, I just want to – I'll give you a little bit here. 5-time All-AFL team, 3-time AFL All-Star, 5-time AFL receptions leader.
Wow. That's pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Well, number 3 for me, I guess. Maybe we'll have the same number 3 so far. We've been in an echo chamber, so to speak. Charlie says we can trust him. Charlie, you have a beautiful little dog there going on in the background, so we will trust you there. But I actually have Demaryius Thomas. Again, somebody that I watched. The injuries early on kind of slowed him down. He was more of an athlete coming out of Georgia Tech. That triple option offense. It makes no goddamn sense that Demaryius Thomas and Calvin Johnson came from Georgia Tech and that triple tech offense to be what they did in the NFL. But Demaryius Thomas, phenomenal. Yes, he did have a little bit of a benefit from having Peyton Manning here those years, but there's Peyton Manning benefited from having Demaryius Thomas here. So he's definitely deserving of number 3.
It's part of why he came to Denver.
Yep. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
This was my fourth guy, Haven Moses.
okay.
I've read a lot of good things about him, but yeah, DT was my number 3, and just it's kind of weird. He had like the quietest stats. That he had his great big plays, but it just seemed like he got him in such big chunks that there'd be games where you'd like, "Where's Demaryius Thomas?" and then he'd have a big play come out of nowhere, and just he has some of the greatest historical plays. I mean, obviously the playoff win. You think about even that Super Bowl against the Seahawks. How many catches did he have? Like 18,
something like that.
It was yeah. I mean, he had a dislocated shoulder while he was doing that, and so just the toughness of that guy. He did it the right way. He was quiet. Yeah. He just did his work and put up some great numbers. Terry Randall coming in here. Keep chugging, Nick. Wanted to make sure we didn't miss that there. All right. So
I want to actually come back here real quick.
Okay.
Just to make it, I guess, current right now, we have Manny Weiss coming in. McCaffrey should be number 3. I thought about McCaffrey. He was second fiddle to Rod Smith. That'd be like saying Eric Decker. Maybe that's a little bit of an insult, but like he was not the number 1. Rod Smith was the dude. Shannon Sharp was probably more valuable. He was number 3.
Yeah.
4, actually. Terrell Davis.
Yeah.
Granted, it takes a team. Like all those guys, there's a synergistic effect going on. God, I hope that's what we see this year with everything the Broncos have. But the question I have is, what is a possibility or the potential that Courtland Sutton, when his career's over, we could come back and say, yes, he's one of those 3 guys? Because like he's been pretty freaking good the last 2 years. Yeah. Obviously, a lot of it depends on Drew Lock, but like Sutton could be the truth, man. He is really talented. I was not as high on him because I like guys who separate a little bit better, but he's so agile. The catch point, his route running improved a lot. The drops improved a lot. I think there's a real shot that he could end up in the top 3.
Well, okay, so a couple things he's got some hurdles with. Longevity. Players staying in one franchise just isn't happening as much. I think he's in their long-term plans, but let's say Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler both pan out.
Yeah.
Do you go ahead and pay Courtland Sutton and say, instead of putting that money elsewhere and say, we've already got 2 great receivers, let's keep drafting at this position? Because, I mean, look at how many great wide receivers are coming out of college football anymore. It just, you're getting quicker production at that position than you've had in the past. And as much as I want to invest in that, and Courtland Sutton is one I would personally invest in because he is that true number 1 wide receiver, the guy that has the ability to win over the top, over the middle, win everywhere. It just, I just wonder longevity of whether he's going to last.
Yeah, that's a good question. I just think the talent is there, and I think the question is more so Jeudy versus Hamler rather than Sutton versus Jeudy versus Hamler, just when the contracts come up. Yeah. So will be interesting. I definitely think we are in the same boat here in regards to the tight end, Shannon Sharp. He's the guy for me. If I had to go for a second one, I guess I would go Julius Thomas, just because I can't speak to any. I can't. Jeb Putzier, like what? Like I can't think of any other great tight ends for the Broncos, but Shannon Sharp easily number 1.
Riley Odom is the name from the past that comes up. I know. I'm just telling you that's a name from the past that a lot of people really put up there as a great Broncos tight end. Some of our older listeners, older than us at least, listeners can maybe speak to some of these guys a little bit more than we can. I'm kind of going off of stats more than anything else. But yeah, you're right. Shannon Sharp's number 1. There should be no argument about that. He's Hall of Fame tight end, put up huge numbers for the Broncos. He really helped transform the tight end position to the receiving tight end that it is today. Doesn't want to put Fance in there. Maybe someday.
Fingers crossed, man. But Darren, you're on me. That's I definitely. I thought about it. Okay. Offensive line. This is probably one of the more interesting groups, just because, again, when I was saying like I definitely know the Broncos back like the early 2000s with the skill position players, the John Elway era on. That's the first football game I remember. But offensive line, I mean, some of it, I became an offensive line fan later on, but like I do not remember all the great offensive linemen. So some of this will have a little bit of recency bias here. Starting off with this first guy, Ryan Clady. if he'd have stayed healthy, I really do think he'd have ended up in Canton. That Liz Frank injury just zapped him. It's really unfortunate. You're talking about Demaryius Thomas being one of the main reasons that Peyton Manning came to Denver. That story on The Athletic saying that Ryan Clady, the incredible pass blocking left tackle, maybe the best in football at the time, is the reason that Peyton Manning came, like that one of that final determining factors. And Ryan Clady, I mean, gorgeous. The pass set's just unbelievable. You can actually watch tape of him, and it is unbelievable. If you could put Ryan Clady on this team, the only person I could think of that I'd rather have for this Broncos roster outside of one of the quarterbacks would be Shane Bailey. But Clady, incredible. Just moving along here for the offensive line for me, we might even have the same one. Mark Schlereth gets the dimension. He gets a little bit of a, I guess we'll say, boomery sometimes on his radio bit because he's offensive line or bust. I think he was ranting the other day about how much better the Raiders roster is than the Broncos, probably because he thinks the offensive line is probably the only thing that matters outside the quarterback position. Because if you've seen that Raiders defense, it's trash, guys. I mean, it's not good. Tom Nalen, center, really undersized, but it was perfect for that Gibbs zone heavy run blocking scheme. Another interior offensive lineman here. Again, full disclosure, did not watch him crowdsourcing here to get this name. Keith Bishop. I could not tell you about him. Maybe Thomas Hall, somebody in the comment section will come in, but Keith Bishop, it seemed like he was consensus for an offensive lineman that the Broncos should add. So going to toss him in here for me. And then Ryan Zimmerman. Do you remember Ryan Zimmerman? Was great on multiple teams, and I think he definitely deserves a nod here. But the only one I can really go to bat for would be Ryan Clady because he was incredible.
Did you mean Gary Zimmerman?
Gary, what did I say? Ryan? He's a baseball player. That was a slip. Excuse me.
Okay, I was just kind of going, wait a second here.
Ryan Zimmerman played third base for the Nationals and then moved to first base. So
yes, okay. So we actually have the exact same offensive line. This is kind of hopefully defense will get a little bit more. Unfortunately for the Broncos, the offensive best days were the 90s and the Manning era. And so those are going to be the years that you're going to have your top players because those were the top teams. I mean, 2 or 3 of the top offenses in NFL history come from those groups. Of course, they're going to be pretty heavy for those areas. Lepsis is another one that I know for the offensive line that I've seen mentioned. But you're right. I did hear about Keith Bishop. They talked about how a lot of the big plays of the 80s, like on the drive against Cleveland, he was one that really helped spring Elway for a big run, and a couple of his big passes came really where Bishop kind of pushed his guy, gave him a pocket to step up into. And so, like I said, I've just heard a lot of really good things. It's not from firsthand account of watching the guy play or anything like that, but it is just I do think he deserves to be on the list of a guy that a lot of those guys from the 80s talk about. This was the guy.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good one. Also, I guess we'll come back here. Chance for Dalton Reisner. That's your boy. I'll give you the floor on this one.
Yeah. Well, who was it? One of the Denver media people were just talking the other day, and I saw Dalton Reisner on his Facebook put it up there and posted it, and it said that he thinks that Dalton Reisner will be a 10-time Pro Bowler by the time he gets done with his career.
10?
10.
I mean, that's Hall of Fame.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what that would be. But he's obviously a great personality, guy that gets along with just about everybody. He's a hard worker. He understands coming from obviously small town, having to work his career through everything to get where he is today. And he's a leader. That's part of why they brought him in. That's why they thought he could work well with Garrett Bowles and see what he could help him with, that he would have the actual patience to work with a guy like that. Yeah. So all those things added together. And on top of that, I mean, he is a talented player. He can move. He's got strength. He's smart. He's got a little bit of everything that you really want on the interior. And so he has that kind of chance. And especially if this offense can click together. I mean, as you know, especially when it comes to offensive line, you have to have success on the offense to get noticed.
That's very true. Joe Thomas.
Joe Thomas. Okay, but he was also
third overall pick.
Right. And so he was going to get noticed no matter what. But even there, it still hurt him some not to have great offenses to really show what he could bring to the table.
Yeah, good point. Willard Axtell coming in, Stink was a beast. He had so many injuries and kept on playing. Maybe that's why he's so hard on Juwan James. he's kind of been there, done that. Oh,
Yeah.
excuse me. There's the beer coming up for me. If you put Mecklenburg on the defense today, we're going to be a dynasty team. That's the topic for maybe another day. Personally, there are some other defensive players I would probably go before Mecklenburg. No disrespect to Mecklenburg. It's just positional value. You guys know how I am. You can probably predict what I'm going to say. I've preached it enough times. But also we got
I will say, though, Mecklenburg was the guy he played, 4 or 5 different positions on defense?
Yes.
So, if you're talking about that positional value player, in today's NFL, he fits what you're looking for, a guy that can bring various things.
Does he bring so much value? Like, are you going to take off? Are you going to drop Bradley Chubb into coverage so you can bring Mecklenburg up the A-gap? Like, does that help the defensive structure so much? I'd rather get the shutdown corner in Champ Bailey.
Well, yes.
Like that.
I would take Champ Bailey over about anybody.
Yeah. So, Ruan Jones, good call out there. Dennis Elliott, he's another name as well. Pabby coming in. Hi, everybody. I'm late tonight. Pabby, how dare you? You must have been having some patio beers as well. But we forgive you for sure. But thanks for joining us, and thanks for everybody for joining us today. We are through the offense now. We got the defense to go. That'll be a little more interesting. Carl, I think we might have had the exact same offense. Folks, complete transparency. We did not talk about this beforehand. I'm like, Carl, this morning, what do you want to talk about? Let's do the all-time team. Put together our lists. Haven't talked about it since. Same exact team. God damn it, we live in an echo chamber. But just join us in our echo chamber. Make sure you guys subscribe, like, and share. We appreciate it a lot. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers on YouTube beforehand. Also, go to iTunes, leave us a 5-star rating and a comment. Guys, if you like the hat, Carl, I know your hair is just gorgeous. The hair game's been on point, but his hat's gone. You guys got to get the beautiful hat like I have on today. Building the Broncos cap. You can go to huddleuppod.com. And guys, this is the Building the Broncos football podcast. There's obviously the Huddle Up podcast. There's the Dub Valley Deep Divers. There's the Mile High Insiders, but you're joining us today. The best one, in my opinion, even though I'm on 2. Don't tell Luke, guys. If you bring that up next week, I'm going to be mad. Actually, Luke's not joining me. He's getting the 4th of July off. But, yeah, best one. My favorite. Always love to talk with Carl. Love it when you guys can join us. On to the defense now that that's over. We're going to start off with our edge rushers. Number 1 here, Von Miller, number 2 overall pick in 2011. Probably one of the best Bronco players that I can appreciate for his career. The end may be close for his Broncos career, and I'm talking about maybe the next 2-3 seasons. That's sad. That's the nature of the game. But, man, Super Bowl 50, that took the whole defense. Obviously, Peyton Manning being the leader of the offense. But Von Miller, he was that difference maker. And what he did in that Super Bowl or the playoff run there, it will be – I don't know if that'll ever be topped for my perspective as like a fan or an analyst of the game following this team, because it was incredible.
Yeah, you're right. He's got to be number 1. Really, it's probably between him and Champ Bailey of who was the greatest Broncos defensive player of all time.
I couldn't tell you right now. That's too hard.
Yeah.
Don't make me do it.
If Von keeps going the next 2-3 years getting 10 sacks or more, I think he could pass Champ Bailey, as crazy as that is to say. But, Von Miller's my number 1 edge rusher. Number 2, Simon Fletcher. He's number 2 in the franchise in sacks. And, as an edge player, nothing you can do better than disrupt the passer. And he played in a time where they didn't pass as much, so getting sacks was a little bit of some work. And I would have a tough time keeping him off of my list here. DeMarcus Ware, I think, was a great player, but he wasn't here many years. So he had 14, 15, 16, so 3 years. So it's hard to keep him on the list. Dumerville, again, didn't play his entire career here, so didn't get as many opportunities. And so Simon Fletcher is my number 2 edge rusher.
All righty, well, same for me. So we're still on the same track. Interior defensive line, it might get a little bit different here.
Yes.
Go ahead. You go first.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, you gave a lot of your offense first, so I'll give you my defense. Trevor Pryce is my number 1 interior guy. Just one of the best disruptors in football. Hated that he and Mike Shanahan did not get along very well and ended up going to was it the Ravens, I think it was. And then Greg Craggan, is my number 2 guy. Again, I love guys that can disrupt the passer. He was one even before sacks were a number. He was getting after the quarterback. 3-time All-Pro player.
Wow.
And I think that we don't talk about him hardly ever, but this guy, he was just an anchor in the middle of that defense for the Broncos.
Well, I had him written down as a question mark, but I did not watch any of Cragen, so I felt a little bit more comfortable going with Derek Wolfe. We had the conversation of John Elway's best draft picks, and number 2 on our list behind Von Miller was Derek Wolfe. Derek Wolfe was good here for a long time. I think there's an argument for him to be made as a Ring of Famer. Probably Cragen was a better player, but I can't speak personally for him evaluating him, how good he was. I can speak to how good and solid and consistent he was on the field and how important to the defense Derek Wolfe was. So if you push me hard on Cragen, I'd probably back off immediately, but I figured if you watch Derek Wolfe, I'd make that pitch.
That 3-time All-Pro.
Yeah.
Derek Wolfe was not close to being an All-Pro player at his best.
The Hall of Very Good.
Yes. All right, before we get to our linebackers here, Peterson Creative coming in here. Let's go. Sharing some Broncos love, my guys, at Bleeding Orange Blue, or Bleeds Orange and Blue on Twitter, on the Twitter machine. Stay up, be kind, friends. Make sure you add him on Twitter alongside us as well. And let's talk some Broncos football beyond our Tuesday time here. We love to do that. As many of you know that have reached out to us, we love it. And
my other guy was Trevor Price. Just heads up, I didn't say it, but okay. Trevor Price, he's kind of a defensive end and an interior guy, but I'm getting smaller, lighter, faster, pass rush heavy. Trevor Price is playing interior defensive line for me.
Didn't Simon Fletcher make a Pro Bowl? I believe it was the biggest, or never make a Pro Bowl. I can't read today. I believe it was the biggest atrocity ever in NFL history. I can't remember if he did or not.
I think he did not.
I mean, Broncos were kind of always missed out on a lot of things that maybe they should have.
Afterthought.
Yeah. So this Hunter, he's the one that actually gave me this idea to do this all-time Broncos team. And so I think he asked me like a month ago. I kept saying, oh, yeah, we'll get to that. So we're finally getting to it, Hunter.
So we got Pabby coming in as well. Thanks, guys, for the awesome pod. No, Pabby, thank you. Love my MHH family. Go Broncos. Absolutely agree there. Here's Derek Wolfe was a Walmart Target on a good day version of J.J. Watt. I mean, J.J. Watt was so good that like his 3-year span from like 2012 to 2014, I think can only be rivaled by Bruce Smith. Like that's how incredibly good he was, especially for a guy who was he was edge, but he's also interior defensive line. I hear what you're saying, but like from all the defensive players that I've ever watched, as good as Von Miller is, as good as Aaron Donald's peak has been, J.J. Watt is probably the best singular one I have watched. So maybe he's the Walmart version, but that's like saying that, he's like the Walmart version compared to like, Coach or Gucci or something. So definitely an interesting one there. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I was just going to say, I think Dennis Smith played along Steve Atwater and Crockett.
Yes.
I think those were the two main guys that played next to him for a lot of times here in Denver. But we'll get to the safety position here pretty soon. I'm sure Steve Atwater's name might be mentioned.
Has to. I'd feel too bad. I'd feel guilty if I didn't because he's too nice. Linebacker, guys, again, this is an all-time team, but it's 2020. Only 2 linebackers listed. We might have some honorable mentions, but I going back here again, guys that I did not get to personally watch, but these are actually 2 that I have watched some of their tape just to see how incredibly talented and transformative they were. Somebody we've already mentioned on here, Carl Mecklenburg, played all over the defense, really talented. Just really good player, definitely deserves Hall of Fame. But also Randy Gradishar, the other one for me. So honorable mention to Al Wilson, a really good player for a while. Maybe if that neck injury didn't happen, there'd be more of an argument for him here, but I can't put him in the same tier as Mecklenburg and Gradishar.
You forgot a name for honorable mention, Tom Jackson.
I was going to say Bill Romanowski. Tom Jackson as well, but I don't know. Tom Jackson, I definitely saw highlights, but I cannot speak to him as much.
Yeah.
Bill Romanowski was like my favorite player besides like Shannon Sharp, Terrell Davis, John Elway when I was growing up, just because he was such a jerk. Like just that, like that's how a defensive player is supposed to look. The eye black, just mean. He'd spit on you just because you looked at him wrong.
Yeah. Seeing some DJ Williams love here.
Man, it's definitely a good athlete.
Yeah, it just too many of his tackles were after like 5 or 6 yards were gained. That was the one thing that really bothered me with him was he never was making the big play that stopped a team. he was always doing the cleanup duty, making lots of tackles, but he always seemed like he was just a step late getting in there to make a big play.
And it wasn't a step late because of his athleticism. It was a step late because it just wasn't, you like watching Mike. I've been doing some Micah Parsons work again. Hello, 2021 draft. We're already here. But Micah Parsons knows where you're going with the ball beforehand. And it's not only is it clicking. I mean, he could be a little quicker, but not only is it clicking, but then he has that click and close speed to meet you. I mean, it's different.
Yeah. John Mobley, that's another name thrown out there from the 90s. Nice name to throw out there. Al Wilson loved his game as well. I don't know how well he would do in today's NFL, just because it is a passing league more than a run league, but he was dominant when he had to be. And he made some splash plays for the Broncos. I remember a 4th and 1, I think, against the Raiders. It's always one of his big highlights where he just made a huge stop. Snow game. There it is, man. Jay Roper. Yes. And I remember that snow game against the Raiders, and he slammed the Raiders running back on 4th down. Boom. Great play.
And do you know where John Mobley went to college?
Don't say Iowa.
No.
Okay.
I wish.
Yeah.
He went to a small school called Kutztown, Kutzton, and he was a first-round pick, went 15th overall, coming from Kutztown. So if anybody has any college tape of John Mobley at Kutztown, whatever it is, send it to me because it has to be one of the most dominating, sad things to ever see. If you ever see a player who's Division III and they end up being an NFL dominant player, that means they're just absolutely obliterating people. First-round pick. I mean, the only other one that I can think of that's kind of that tier, not even that low, but who was the Titans quarterback? But Steve McNair, Alcorn State, went 2 or 3 overall. His tape, it's not fair. It's like he's a 99 on Madden playing everybody in rookie mode. So
we got North Dakota State for Carson Wentz.
True. The issue with that is that it was such a run-heavy offense that they just didn't let him sling it around.
Yeah.
When you see a defensive player or something like that just flying around, it's different.
And I will say, for a small school, North Dakota State is actually pretty well known.
They're the Alabama of Division II.
Yeah, exactly. So they are pretty well known. All right, let's get to then our cornerbacks. We got 3 cornerbacks because, again, going 3 wide, we got to have 3 cornerbacks to cover them. Of course, we got to start with number 1, Champ Bailey. If you don't have him on your list, what's wrong with you? What did Champ Bailey do to you to not have him on your list? That's got to be number 1. Luis Wright is another one on mine. I don't know if he is on yours. I didn't personally get to see him, but I mean, again, hearing that he was just one of the most dominant cover corners during his time. He was the Champ Bailey of the old. And then I do have Chris Harris Jr.
Same 3.
Same
3. Put Chris Harris Jr. in the slot too. It's even better.
Yeah.
Put Champ Bailey on one side, Lewis and Chris Harris Jr. on the other. Honorable mention though. I mean, obviously his time was cut too short, but Darren Williams could have been a pretty special player as well. He was heading in a pretty incredible direction and a great person as well, and was cut down in his prime. So that was God, that sucks. But I definitely think we hit the right 3. Talib is an interesting call out as well. I think he deserves a nod, but you can't go with him over Luis Wright.
Yeah. Just too short of a career.
Yeah.
The winner.
What a jerk. It's got to be Michael Adrudia because he went to Iowa, right? Whoever gives me always the hard time. Speaking of Iowa, best long snap. No, I'm just kidding. Safeties now. That's probably another one that would be interesting. Oh, Duke coming in. Tyrone Braxton. That's a good one as well.
Yep.
Do you remember Lenny Walls?
Yeah.
I just remember I was thinking middle school, and I thought Lenny Walls was going to be a god because there were 6'5" cornerback. Are you kidding me? He's going to be great because he's tall. That's how it works, right? So obviously opinions have changed now. I'm a maybe not smarter, but more experienced person, evaluator at this point. So safety, you mentioned it already. Steve Atwater, he's definitely deserves it. The other one here, again, another one that I had to do some crowdsourcing here. Austin Gonsolin, Goose is his nickname. Definitely deserving of that. Didn't get to watch him. I do think that there's a really good chance, bringing it back to the Cortland Sutton conversation, Justin Simmons. If Vic Fangio can stick around, if the Broncos defense can stay good, I think Justin Simmons has a chance to displace Goose on this list.
Well, I went for a different name.
Okay.
I went for the all-time interception leader in Denver Bronco history, Steve Foley.
Okay.
44 interceptions. He was part of that Orange Crush defense back in the late 70s. Helped them get to that Super Bowl. Just he was the guy that manned the middle of that defense and cleaned up all the different plays. Yeah, I just when he's the leading interception guy on the in history for the Broncos, it's hard to leave him off the list when you're talking about safeties.
Absolutely. So, Darian, I'll go down this wormhole with you for 1 second because this is a Denver Bronco podcast, not an Iowa Hawkeye podcast. Obviously, Iowa program in some turmoil right now. But why is Iowa an NFL factory? But they suck every year. First off, don't suck every year. Almost every single season go to a solid bowl game. And they always play above their recruiting ranks. They bring in 2- and 3-star guys, and they end up producing NFL talent. So that speaks a lot to them. Just, I don't know, a lot of talent doesn't want to come to Iowa. Iowa's not a very populated state. The players that are in the recruiting area tend to go to Notre Dame, Ohio State, Michigan, Nebraska. I mean, heck, a lot of good Iowa players have ended up going to Alabama in the recent years, players from the state of Iowa. So I think it speaks most to the depth. You know, like they can get some really good players, but when it comes down to it, they just cannot throw 4- or 5-star athletes at you over and over again. So that requires a lot of luck, health, coming in at the same time. So I think they've performed well, but national champion expectations is probably unrealistic. So especially
yeah, I was just gonna say it's hard when you can't fill every position in college with top talent, and you got to grow them every year. You got to take them from a freshman and transform them into NFL talent by the time they get there. Where you're talking some of these teams like Alabama, Clemson, they're getting guys that honestly, as freshmen, if they entered the draft, some teams would think about taking some of these guys first, second round.
Yep.
I mean, Trevor Lawrence would have been a first-round pick after being a senior in high school.
I mean, he might have even gone first overall in this past draft if he'd have been able to come out.
Well, yeah.
Great this year, and there are some questions with Lawrence with ball placement and accuracy from time to time. But, we'll get to that if the Broncos suck this year and Drew Lock doesn't show to be the guy. Specialists, I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. I left long snapper blank. That's a tongue twister. Because maybe that's the beer talking. Because I can't tell you about long snappers very well. Casey Kreider, go Hawks. And then Jason Elam for kicker. I really could not think of a punter. I really couldn't. I thought about it, and there was none that really stuck out to me.
Tom Ruin. That's who I went with.
I could not tell you about him.
Oh, Pappy coming in here. This is for Champ. Go Broncos. Thank you, Pappy. Appreciate that. Hard to argue with that.
Yeah, he's the guy.
Yep.
Absolutely. So, Carl, we got probably another 5 or so minutes before we should get on out of here. We've already run through our entire teams. Is there anything you want to talk about? Obviously, you're in charge today of finding our section to share. So if you're thinking about anything in that regard or something that we've already discussed, anything that makes you anything that's interesting or wannabes, let's see what's going on here.
Oh, he just had a quick thing there.
Okay.
I don't think I want to take on that question of Broncos getting blown out in Super Bowls.
Let's do it.
Okay.
I think that's an interesting one. Why the Broncos blown out a lot of Super Bowls? The NFC was much more talented at that point, and the Broncos, John Elway could only take them so far before the rest of the roster was exposed. Dan Reeves was a solid coach, but those Broncos teams in 98 and 99, to win that many games in a row, at some point you're going to have to rely on something other than your superstar quarterback. And those teams just sputtered at that point, so they got exposed. That's
why I always say quarterback can get you to the playoffs. Full roster gets you Super Bowls. There's rarely a time where you see a quarterback just absolutely carry you not only through the season, but then to the Super Bowl as well. That's why a lot of MVPs don't win the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I mean, Cam Newton, he just got signed. So, I mean, he's a big topic right now. And it's kind of an interesting fit there being in Patriot land, but I don't want to get too far off on that rabbit trail. But it is. It's John Elway was always great enough to carry a bad roster to the playoffs. And he was good enough to even carry them in some playoff games and get them to those Super Bowls. But when you come up against a team that is just so much more talent. I mean, we're talking about college football. Like there are some great quarterbacks out there that carry some bad teams. Andrew Luck. He carried some Stanford teams that were good, not great. But there's no way he was going to compete with the Alabamas or the Clemsons of today's college football. They just have too good of a roster that can just take away everything and pretty much say anybody else beat us but that person. Peyton Manning in 2013. I mean, that offense was a juggernaut. But you took away the pass game. You said, okay, we're going to sell out, run on us. And the Broncos couldn't do it. Or they refused to do it. And so it just, again, that's kind of something that shows up a lot there. And so then, of course, you get to the 97, 98 seasons, and the Broncos finally have a run game. They have some defensive pieces in place, and they're able to compete with those top teams in the NFC.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I do want to come back to a point where I think you were on point as well with the great quarterback can get you to the playoffs, but a great team can get you to the Super Bowl. I think it goes the other way as well. I think you can have a roster that can get you to the playoffs, but at some point, that quarterback is going to need to be a difference maker. It's the 49ers this year. You know, that offense, the whole team, the defensive line specifically, incredible. Jimmy Garoppolo missed that wide open touchdown pass to Emmanuel Sanders that otherwise they would have been Super Bowl champs. I mean, really. So at some point, that quarterback is the limiting reagent. Some chemistry talk for you nerds out there. Appreciate you nerds. But I think that is it goes both ways in terms of that anecdote.
Yeah. All right. Terry Randall coming in with another state of being for Nick, getting one more drink in before we get out of here. It's either have to be all time on one side of the ball.
Yeah.
I guess I even look at like last year with the Chiefs. As great as Patrick Mahomes is, honestly, that defense did some pretty amazing things at times. They made the plays when they absolutely needed a play.
Yeah.
It's Houston when they were down so much, all of a sudden, like they just made the stops they had to make. And now Patrick Mahomes all of a sudden went and made some plays. Titans, they kind of got taken there at the beginning of the game, but then the defense tightened up. Super Bowl, again, that second half, they really tightened up after their team was down a little bit. And it just – you can't keep a good team down. And for Patrick Mahomes, he needed still a good roster around him to win those games.
Yep. No, absolutely. You're correct. So, guys, we probably should get out of here. I got to go do puppy duty. So appreciate you a lot. Carl, anything you want to mention before we start reading the outro here?
No, I just want to say real quick, we got 1 month till training camp. And so it's exciting times. We're going to get a lot of information coming in, see what this team really is all about. And so get excited. Football's coming back, hopefully.
Yeah.
and we'll get to see it. And there's some other players to get excited about. Bradley Chubb comes back, and we'll see what that can do for the defense.
Yeah. I guess one question before we get on out of here. We mentioned a couple guys, but anybody on the current roster that you think has a chance to displace anybody on this all-time list? Because for me right now, the only ones I can think about would be Justin Simmons, I think, has the best shot. If you're doing 3 wide receivers, then Cortland Sutton comes into play. Maybe Dalton Risner as well. But other than that, that's probably it. Granted, you're talking about the all-time roster compared to a single blip season. That's to have 3 guys that have the potential to do that. It's pretty great. But still, anybody else?
Well, Bradley Chubb comes to mind. If he can stay healthy, I mean, he's a guy that because of the position he plays, you're going to want to keep him long-term. Yeah. So, again, if he can stay healthy, if he can do those 12 sacks a year for the next 8 years, he's right there with Simon Fletcher when we're talking about sacks that he brought to the roster. Yeah. And so I could see him passing Simon Fletcher. I don't see him ever passing Von Miller. It's going to take a lot to ever pass Von Miller because he's one of the best pass rushers in NFL history.
We're talking about the question for Von Miller right now isn't is he Canton bound? It's is he going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer?
Yeah.
So then we can have the Champ Bailey versus Von Miller discussion. And I guess the last question coming here on the all-time team, you guys can mention in the comments as well. Any position that you were surprised going through this that was weaker than you thought?
Maybe a little bit on the offensive line.
Okay.
Like Gary Zimmerman, he's Hall of Fame. But the rest of them, considering when you're talking about that 90s team and how they were known about their offensive line, that none of the rest of them are in the Hall of Fame, kind of surprised me.
Is that because the scheme was so different that like nobody else knew how to stop it? It's kind of like the Princeton offense in basketball, where like those guys weren't that great, but because they were so different in what they did, it was such a curveball to the rest of the league that they were effective. It wasn't the individual talent, but this scheme difference was so just hard to prepare for and made them just a hard out.
And that could be. Like I said, just considering the history of the Broncos, I mean, they've had great running backs, Floyd Little, Terrell Davis, who have put up huge numbers. You would think offensive linemen would get some recognition for some of that.
Yeah.
And it really hasn't happened all that much. I mean, the 90s offensive line is talked about, but it really isn't, like you said, it's more about as a unit than as an individual player.
Yeah. For me, it's the interior defensive line.
Yeah.
I mean, Trevor Price and Derek Wolfe for me, there's not really a guy that is just like, eyebrow raising, incredibly talented. Like you're talking about the cornerbacks, there's some incredible talent, linebacker, safety, wide receiver. The rest of it's really incredible. But like interior defensive line, we were talking about guys who are like more so Pro Bowlers, all pros, rather than that true Hall of Fame kind of guy. So maybe we'll see in the future. But that was one, it was like, that's my favorite position to scout as well. So I'm definitely, a little harder on that. But that was one I was wishing for a little bit more looking at it in hindsight.
All right, we got one last super chat here coming in from Duke. What would stop an NFL team from signing a franchise player before they entered the draft? I know there are certain rules, but if I were Denver, I'd approach the best available left tackle and sign them.
Does he mean like ones that are in the draft?
That are coming up, like, so instead of maybe playing their junior year, you sign them now.
They have to go through the draft process to be eligible for the NFL. So they have to go through that checkpoint first before they are eligible to sign contracts.
There's only been one offensive lineman in the last 10 years that I remember really got to pick his own team, and that was Lael Collins. And he had such a weird situation that it just kind of worked out in his favor in the end, kind of. Otherwise, he would have been a first-round pick. But so I guess in the long term, it actually kind of worked out because then he played well, got himself a contract earlier than he would have if he was a first-round pick. But still a lot of risk that kind of went into that.
Yes, that's the word. Risk is a good word. So, guys, I'm going to risk getting in trouble if I go any longer. So we should probably get out of here. That's going to end it today. You guys can find Carl on Twitter at Carl Dumler, MHH, and myself at Kendell, MHH. If you have any questions for us, Broncos related, life related, just want to send memes, I'm your dude. Just follow us on Twitter. We'll talk. Make sure you head on over to milehighhuddle.com. an affiliate of the Maven Coalition and Sports Illustrated. Again, like, subscribe, share on YouTube. Go to iTunes, leave us a 5-star rating and a comment. Your support can help us continue to bring you these Denver Bronco deep dives and just make this community grow. We really do appreciate you guys. We love chatting with you every week. It's really the highlight of my week. You can follow the Building the Broncos podcast and all our other great audio content. Again, subscribing to our show. Follow us on Twitter at Mile High Huddle and at BTB Football Pod. For Carl, I'm Nick, wrapping up another episode of the Building the Broncos podcast. Carl, I know I ask you this every time. Any words of wisdom before we get out of here?
Just be safe out there. Be smart. Have a great weekend with family and friends, and eat lots of food, and drink and be merry.
Absolutely, but if you're drinking, don't drive.
Yes.
And be safe with your fireworks. We all remember Jason Pierre-Paul.
Yes.
So, I'm a violinist. Fingers are really important, guys. Keep your fingers. So that's going to end it tonight. We appreciate y'all. I will be back on Saturday. Luke has the night off, but Eric will be joining me. Don't know what we're talking about yet. Hey, follow me on Twitter, at me on Twitter if you have a topic you want to talk about on the 4th, this Saturday. If you're going to be out drinking, grilling, shooting off fireworks, whatever, we'll see you next week. Appreciate y'all. But as always, we're going to leave you with a Go Broncos and have a safe 4th of July weekend. God bless.